He'd always been a quiet man, a hard-working farmer with rough hands, a sunburned neck, and a calm voice that rarely rose above a whisper. But on the day his barn went up in flames, he became the most unforgettable figure I'd ever seen, both in the witness stand and in my memory dot. It all began a week before. Early on a crisp autumn morning, the dew still clung to the hay, and the smell of earth filled the air. Nathan, mid-50s, sturdy, still mourning the loss of his wife, moved deliberately through the barn, stacking every piece of old equipment and every last tool into his old pickup truck. I watched from the neighbor's porch, notebook in hand, jotting down every detail. The rusting milking pails, the ancient plow, even his grandmother's chipped porcelain tea set. Later that day, he drove into the field and spent hours mowing. A perfect 50-yard circle around the barn. The grass lay low and even, a green moat against any chance of the fire spreading beyond his property. I'd known Nathan for years. He was the kind of farmer you passed on Sunday drives, solid, dependable. The guy whose kids all wore matching boots. So when I saw him with a blue gas can in his hand, pouring liquid along the barn's wooden base, I was certain it was fuel. My heart pounded as I hurried inside and dialed 911. By the time the sirens reached us 5 minutes later, the barn was already a blazing inferno. Flames roaring 50 feet into the sky. The fire department arrived, faces grim, breathing masks in place. They sprayed hoses with every ounce of water they had, but it was like trying to drown a wildfire with a garden hose. The barn collapsed in on itself with a thunderous crack that rattled my bones. In the smoke and ash, they smelled diesel fuel, no doubt about it. Arson. They cuffed Nathan right there, his blue overalls streaked with soot, his face calm as if he'd merely finished his chores. When the case went to trial, I sat in the jury box wearing my badge and a feeling of certainty. The prosecution laid out the story like a blueprint. The valuables moved out, the fire moat mowed, the gas can uncorked. They played the 911, called the neighbor's trembling voice mine, and called every expert they could. Fire inspectors, insurance adjusters, the firefighters who smelled the fuel. We all nodded, convinced we had a slam-dunk conviction. Then the defense lawyer stood. He was a wiry man with slicked back hair and a polite smile. He called Nathan to the stand, and at first, I braced myself for some weasel answer. But instead, Nathan looked at us each jury member in the eye and said simply, "Yep, I burned it down." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. The lawyer leaned in. "Why? It was old and rotten," Nathan said. "Termites had eaten it nearly through. I worried it'd fall on someone. It wasn't safe." The lawyer's pen hovered in midair, and sure. "Have you always burned down old buildings?" "Sure," Nathan said. "My daddy did it before me. Granddaddy too." The courtroom fell silent. The lawyer pressed on. "Did you know you needed a permit to burn debris in this county?" Nathan leaned back, folded his arms, and said, "My farm is in an agricultural zone. We're exempt. Nobody ever asked us for a permit, ever." I glanced at the prosecution table and saw the lead attorney's face drain of color. Our case had been so airtight until that moment. The defense lawyer gave Nathan a minute to catch his breath and then asked, "Why didn't you tell the police any of this?" The corner of Nathan's mouth crept into a small smile. "They arrested me before asking a single question. Handcuffs on, right to the station. They read me my rights. Anything you say can and will be used against you, so I shut up." I waited for my lawyer. The lawyer turned pages. "Did you file an insurance claim?" Nathan shook his head. "What for? The bond was worthless. I moved the good stuff out first. Never made a claim." By now, the prosecution attorney was burying his face in his hands. Papers scattered on the table as if he'd thrown them in frustration. Still, the defense lawyer had one more question. "I hear you wanted your day in court. Why?" Nathan's voice softened. "They came to my land, arrested me for crimes I didn't commit: arson, insurance fraud, and printed it all in the newspapers. My friends, my neighbors, my whole community, I looked like a crook. I wanted them to hear the truth from me, not from rumors." He leaned forward. "I wanted them to know I'm not dishonest." For a moment, the silence was so thick I could almost taste it. Then the judge cleared his throat. "Defense rests." Within 20 minutes, the charges were dropped. Nathan gathered his coat and toolbox and walked out of the courtroom with that same quiet dignity he always had. Outside, the autumn sun shone through the trees, and the air carried the scent of aging leaves and fresh starts. I remained seated a moment longer, absorbing the lesson. Sometimes the most honest explanation is the hardest to hear, but also the most powerful. Nathan turned back once, caught my eye, and gave a small nod, an unspoken thank you, or perhaps I told you so. I wasn't sure which. The man who admitted to torching his own barn walked free that day, not because he outwitted the law, but because the law had never fully understood him. And I, a sworn juror, realized that truth in court is not always the simplest story, but it is the one worth listening to.